Could the human race have been seeded thousands of years ago by an extraterrestrial race? Could evidence exist of ancient visitors in artwork and an oral tradition? Find out as researchers offer their point of view as Paranormal TV explores ancient astronauts.
When you begin to look back in, medieval history, we find representations of things that look surprisingly like discs and spaceships woven into 12th century tapestries, 14th century frescoes. In Yugoslavia, for example, there's literally something that looks surprisingly like a spaceship with a little man in it that's chasing another little man who's looking back over his shoulder in another spaceship capsule. Looks just like rocket ships. That's just really in our recent historical past. When we begin to go back even further, we discover that some of the legends that have been passed down to us about the Greek gods and the Norse gods, and there have been gods in almost every single civilization, and they're surprisingly similar. That's one of the things that's most interesting about them.
God Kukulkan, Quetzalcoatl, Viracocha, the other old Maya gods, the Inca gods, the gods from the Hopi Indians, the so-called Kachinas, the teachers from heaven, the gods in ancient Egypt. I think these were all the same beings. Maybe the different people around the earth didn't even saw them. It's quite possible, like the example with Christianity, that it happened only at 2 or 3 places. And then the talking started. Oh, it was a great time. They descended from the sky, and now the people start to make their sculpture and their artifacts and so on.
Many of them that are overseeing our planet now have interacted with it historically in some very large and some small ways. They've influenced our religions. They have probably directly inspired many of the mystical or paranormal encounters that holy men like Muhammad and Moses and many of these biblical prophets have had in the past. The Ezekiel chariots of fire.
Gods do not exist. There is only one God, and I'm personally still a deep believer in God. I'm one of these figures who's praying every day. But in antiquity, thousands of years ago, extraterrestrials visited this planet. Our forefathers then did not understood what was going on. They knew nothing about space technology or technology in our sense. So they believed that these beings are the gods. Naturally, there are no gods, but it was a misunderstanding. So they believed these must be the gods. So it was handed down in the religions, in the traditional textbooks, and so on. I even take one step further. I'm absolutely convinced that these extraterrestrials created human intelligence by a deliberate mutation.
When you look at the anthropological and archaeological table, we literally see that as we've gone along from Australopithecus to Java man to Homo erectus and then to Cro-Magnon, that there is a leap directly from Cro-Magnon into Homo sapiens sapien, which is what we are now, that only entailed a 100-year span, which in anthropological terms is impossible.
We have extraterrestrial genes in us, and after a certain time, the program is decoded and opens into the brain. We now have started a sort of cosmic consciousness. We realize that we are not alone. Until now, we have a very egocentric believing. We believe that we are unique in the universe. Something like us never exists. We look down at the navel. We are the greatest, whatever. So now we start to change this position. We start to open our consciousness through the universe, and I believe this is because of the extraterrestrial genes which are in us.
And I find myself agreeing with Von Daniken that it's been going on for at least 400,000 years. And my own conclusions over the last 30 years, I've pretty well concluded that the human race is indeed a hybrid race, that we have very likely been seeded here on this planet, and that I have concluded that we have been continually genetically manipulated on this planet for the last several 100,000 years.